Rebels and Patriots is back on the table. We did a little easy test run. Got a few things wrong. We're going to fix those up, patch those holes, getting better all the time. Today we're going to do a scenario from the book called Crete de Lamentations. Now, actually, in point of fact, this is called First Clash at Lament Ridge. We have translated Lament Ridge into French because we are still at war in the Vendée. The Republicans have decided to smash anything that might pay any due respects to our Heavenly Father, including this little memorial to fallen French heroes of days gone by. This is the objective. For every turn that your force is the only one to have a guy within 1.5 inches, remember we play half scale, of this memorial, you score 1 point. At the end of the game, whoever has the most points wins. In our last episode, the Vendéan farmers captured a gun from the local militia. They now have that. That is a medium-sized gun with a range of 36 inches. Well, 18 for us because, again, we're fighting at half scale. In addition to the medium gun, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 units of farmers. They are classed as natives, and we gave them the aggressive bonus. In other words, they fight at 4+. They cannot take any fire actions, but they can skirmish. The only time they can shoot is when they're running away, basically. And you'll notice there's a mix of muskets and hand implements for each of those guys. That comes out to 26 points. A little on the large side. We're going to allow it. I forgot to mention, for the whites, the leader is blessed. He has a +1 on his casualty test. I just rolled those off screen to save us a little bit of time. For the blues now, here is our leader. And he has, after deployment, he can redeploy 1 infantry unit by 3 inches. We have a unit of skirmishers in the front, half-size unit. They only shoot at half skill, but they can interpenetrate other forces. I think they can even interpenetrate the line infantry. Notice we have 1, 2, 3 line infantry. Those guys do not have any upgrades. And then we have 1 unit of heavy cavalry. Now, those heavy cavalry are shock cavalry. They move 10 inches, and they're pretty tough, but not as tough as you might expect, I think. I don't have a lot of experience with this rule set, but the last game we played, the light infantry was kind of useless. Normally in this scenario, you will dice off to see who's the attacker and who's the defender. Because our whites have access to a cannon, and our blues have access to cavalry, let's set this up as more of an ambush. We're still going to put our whites we're still going to deploy them on the north and south side of the table. The only question is going to be who gets to pick which side they deploy on. And for that, we will roll some dice. Whoops, I was wrong. The attackers take the north side of the battlefield. Now, to make things simple here, this is the ridge running down the center of the battlefield. And I've put 2, we'll call them offsides lines, down. This yarn marks the peak of the ridge. And you can see and shoot across 1 line, but not 2. So if you're standing on the ridge, you can fire in any direction. If you're in this portion of the field, you can only see up to this line right here. Otherwise, you're going to be offsides when you're shooting. On this particular battle, we alternate deployment. The attacker going first. The attacker drops his cavalry in the wide open lane, the only one that's really available to him, and the defenders drop their cannon right here, and then we just kind of alternated directions. So it looks like our leader for the whites is going to be down here on the left, and then trying to get up into the center and kind of providing some support for as many of these units as possible. Likewise, the leader for the blues starts off here in the center. Now, they are in rough going, so they're going to be slowed until they can get out of that. And I think we're just about ready to go. The attacker takes the first activation, and remember, in Rebels and Patriots, you get to attempt to activate all of your units. You just have to determine which units you want to activate first. So on this first turn, it should be pretty easy. Everybody moves on an activation number of 6, with the exception of the leader and any unit within 6 inches of him. So we'll activate on 6, 5, 5, 5, and a 6. And everybody's going to move forward, with the exception of our cavalry, who are going to get... You know what? They are going to stay on this side of the ridge. They don't want any part of this cannon. So we'll just go left to right, easy peasy. Activation. Our skirmishers are going to activate. The leader activates the cavalry. Looking for a 5 or better. They do. The leader whips them into shape. And then the guys over there on the east side of the battlefield, as we look at it, the blue left, or they will be able to move forward as well. Now everybody move. The line infantry move 3 inches. Cavalry 5, and the skirmishers 4 inches. For the farmers, These guys are going to leap over the wall and try to meet these guys. They're going to stay behind cover. Looking for a 6 or better, they fail to activate. So these guys are going to pull over to this side as well. They will activate, and then our leader will be activating on a 5, as will, I think, this other unit. Yeah, on this first turn, this other unit of farmers will activate on a 5. So our leader holds tight. This unit also holds tight, and now our cannon is going to try to take a shot at these guys. He has a range of 18 inches. We've moved our right flank up 4 inches for each of those units. Our cannon has a range of 18 inches. Let's check that. They can fire, there's 18 inches, well within range. We are going to roll 12 dice. We are normally hitting on 4s, but because they are beyond, the target is beyond 6 inches, we're going to have a -1 to each die roll, or a +1 to the target number, meaning we're going to hit on 5s. For every pair, we'll do a casualty. So we get 1 5, a pair of 5s, and I think that's it. Not great. That casualty does force a morale check at -1. We'll pull off one of the guys off the back, and our morale check. Now, they have a discipline, because the leader is there, of +1. And for the Blues, I gave them all veteran. Not necessarily because the troops historically in this portion of the counter-revolution were veterans, but because it's a good way to distinguish between the leadership capabilities and the training of the Blues versus the relatively untrained whites. A case could be made that treating the Vendéans as aggressive or as veterans would be more appropriate because they're way more motivated to win this fight for the cross than the Blues are to win the fight for, like, I don't know, whatever. At any rate, we get a total of 9. So it's a -1 for the casualty, +1 for the leader. We're looking for 6 or better. They're going to pass that morale check. And maybe we don't want to stick them out in the open just yet. This brings us to turn number 2, where we're going to try to move the unit over here on the white left. All right, now this is interesting. I didn't do this last game. Whenever you roll boxcars or snake eyes on an activation, something interesting happens. We roll a d6, we check the chart, and on a result of a 5, the unit fights with determination as true heroes and gain +1 on discipline tests for the rest of the game. Not only that, but they do get to advance as far up to the ridge line, fence line as they can. We're now going to bring our leader up to as close to this as we can get, and a 7 will be successful. Our skirmishers are going to advance, and I think we're going to bring them out to try to draw some cannon fire, and then we'll bring these guys up to the fence line. So everybody's moved except for the one thing we need to resolve is this cavalry unit. And we're going to do that after I move the other infantry. The reason I paused this is that I did this wrong in the last game. For attack actions, you don't move your normal movement pace. Well, first of all, let's find out if they activate. Roll for activation as normal. We need a 5 or better. Remember, our leader is next door. We get a 9. The cavalry will attack. The dice roll is the distance moved by the attacking unit. We're at half scale. These guys are going to move 4.5 inches. Except, because they are cavalry, they... Wait a minute. I think cavalry gets a bonus of 6 inches to their movement. Meaning this 9 becomes a 15, meaning the cavalry will charge a total of 7.5 inches. Fortunately for them, the charge has fallen just short. We moved in the maximum distance, that's 7.5 inches. Uh-oh, that puts them within about 3/4 of an inch, and we got to maintain that 1.5 inches of separation. Really, by attacking here, all we did was buy ourselves a little bonus of 1 inch of movement. And that's going to be it for the blue team. Now we can make our skirmish action with this unit. And to make a skirmish action, first you have to activate. We still need that 6 up. With a 10, we're successful. See, there's our 10. Then, and I'm going to thumb through the rule book just to make sure I get this right. When you do a skirmish action, you move up to half your speed, so that's 2 inches, in any direction. You can fire with half the number of dice you normally use. Now, these guys are not great at firing. They're going to only be hitting on 5s or better, so that's not bad. They have a range of 12 inches, meaning 6 inches, meaning it doesn't really matter whether we fire before or after we move. We might as well go ahead and fire now just to get it out of the way. hitting on 5s at close range. And what a phenomenal roll. We get a total of 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 hits. That's Wait a minute. Devastating. I need to turn back the clock. And I want to show you guys that it happens to the best of us. When you do a skirmish order, you don't fire 12 dice. You fire 6 dice. What does that mean? I think it means we're just going to make things simple, let's just go ahead and put 2 more casualties back down. We'll still treat it as though they got 4 hits on the 6 dice. We'll take that good roll, but I want to re-roll the morale check at least. I think that's reasonable. So with a result of a 3 this time, -2 was a result of a 1, +2 is a 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to give them a disorder marker. And if they get the result of a 3, it's above 2, they get a disorder marker, and it must retreat half a move. So we're still right where we're at, but they get a couple more boys back, and they're merely disordered, they're not broken. That being the case, do we really want to bring these guys up like so? I don't think we do. If that's the case, let's bring them back. Now, they can still move half a move, but let's not tempt, well, because we are definitely going to get charged on the next activation. Nah, aggression. We're going to go aggressive on this one. Shifting over to the farmer's left flank, we're going to start with the guys that are moving up 4 inches. If they get a 5 or better, they do. And then we're going to try to bring our, well, first we're going to try to fire with our cannon. And with a 7, we will. And then we're going to try to bring our leader. Let's go ahead and bring him up to here. And with a 4, our leader is going to hold tight. All right, well, we can move these guys, and we can fire with our cannon. Now, our cannon has to fire at the nearest unit. That's these skirmishers here. The skirmishers, even though they're in open ground, because they're in open order and they're not dumb, they are classed as having an armor 1 higher. They're always considered to be in soft cover. That's what skirmishers are, after all. Because we are doing shooting, they are not within 6 inches. They will start with an armor of 3, and then it becomes an armor of 4. Our cannon hits on 4s or better. So even though we got a reasonably good roll here, like so, we're only going to do 1 casualty to those skirmishers, and this is going to be a problem for us. The skirmishers pass the morale check, and the reason that's a problem is that our cannon is not going to be able to do any good defending against the serious threat. It's distracted by these skirmishers, which is kind of their job, isn't it? So all I got to do is move these farmers up 4 inches, and then we're done with the turn. We're going to stay on this side of the battlefield. Our skirmishers are a little too far away to benefit from the leader, but they can make a skirmish action. I think we're going to do that. We're going to move them half distance, and then we're going to take a shot at the cannon. With a result of a 6, they will activate. They get to move 2 inches forward, and we'll bring our leader up to here, and our drummer right next to him. And look, we are now within 6 inches. They are going to open fire. Now, because they skirmish, they only get to roll 6 dice. They are hitting on 5s, and they get a total of 1, 2, 3 hits. Normally 2 hits, because of the soft cover, that will remove 1 of the cannoneers. The cannon now does need to make a morale check at +1 because of the leader, at -1 because of the casualty, and with an 8 they will be successful. But we'll take it. The next order of business is to try to bring up this line infantry, and I think instead maybe what we do, I'm thinking we should form line with these guys. And with the result of a 4, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do anything right now. And then our leader is going to move up to take possession of the objective. So they get to work with picks and shovels, trying to knock over this memorial to fallen French soldiers because it has a cross, and crosses are anathema to vampires. Let's shift over and look at the other side of the battlefield now. If our cavalry charges while they are disordered, they are going to suffer from only attacking with 6 dice. We're going to rally them at a +1, +2 altogether because of the leader nearby. A result of an 8 lets them get back into order. Now, they can't do anything else this turn. The last unit of line infantry, and I know these guys are more Napoleonic than counter-revolutionary war. I am proxying figures so that I can spread out and use these guys over a period of 75 years instead of just like 12. With a result of an 8, they are going to simply form line. And you'll see why here in a bit. So to form line, we're just going to form them up into 2 ranks of 6, and that's going to be it for the moment. Then it becomes the farmer's turn, and we are going to bring these farmers into contact if we can. We'll move them up on a result of an 8 for the activation. They will be able to move. Well, wait a minute. Because they're charging, I don't know if the fence negates that. Because they're charging, they're going to move a total of 4 inches. But because the fence is in the way, they're only going to be able to move 3. That's going to bring them up short. And this is where the game really starts to take on the feel of your classic fight in kind of ranks and flanks, if you will. Even though it's a warband game, the fact that these guys have just failed, if they'd rolled another half an inch, they would have made contact. They're going to have to eat a first fire volley, and it's going to be really ugly for this unit on the next turn. Then we have to decide, do we want these guys to attack? We do not. Now, obviously, in this era of warfare, infantry charging cavalry is a bad idea. The rules for the game make that a bad idea because the cavalry has an opportunity to countercharge. They will be doing that at a +1, which makes it all the more likely that the cavalry charge. So instead, we're going to take a... Wait, they can't skirmish, can they? Can our farmers... Let me pull my cheat sheet out. Yeah, they can. So we're going to try to skirmish. Looking for a 6 or better. They get it. And this time around, we're going to fire with 6 dice, right, because it's a skirmish order. Hitting on 5s, we get a total of 1, 2, 3 hits. And you need 3 hits to eliminate 1 cavalryman. And we'll just pull the guy off here. Wait, is that our leader? No, he's not. Our leader's the guy on the white horse. That forces a morale check at just +1. -1 for the casualty, +1 for the leader, +1 for discipline. With a result of a 7, they will be fine. Now our infantry can pull back a little bit, and I think that's probably the smart play. We'll make it a little harder. Do we want to pull them back to the line here? Or do you just want to pull straight back? Let's pull them straight back. I think that's probably fair. And that is going to end the turn. Now, while I move these guys, let me point out that the Blues have possession of the objective. So they are going to score 1 victory point. To make sure I don't lose track, I have a couple of dice up here in my graveyard showing that we are headed into turn number 4. And the score is 1 to the Blues to 0 for the, well, it's the Whites. Hey, the numbers are white. We're going to work our way from right to left in this case. Our line infantry for the Blues are going to open fire on this infantry unit here. They committed to charging. They had to move up to within 1 inch. They do not get the benefit of the cover of the... They're getting blasted as they're climbing over the fence. If we can get a volley off. With a 3, they do not. The Blues have wavered in the face of the charging enemy. Interesting. This is why you gotta roll the dice, man. All right, so now our cavalry can try to charge. And let's see if they pull it off. With the result of a 5, they do. Remember, they get a +1 to the activation because the leader is right over here. Hello. But that 11, as a result, remember it's +6 for the cavalry, means they only move 5.5 inches. So they're going to make it to right here. They're going to be 1.5 inches short. They're going to have to stop right there. A little bit of feinting. Oh boy, so that's kind of ugly for them, ain't it? The good news is they're charging guys that don't really have the ability to shoot at them with any real firepower. Over on this side of the battlefield, our line infantry are 6 inches away from guys behind hard cover now. Let's find out if they shoot first, and on a 6 they will. They're going to do volley fire. Volley fire, now not only is this their first fire, so they get a +1 to hit. Normally, line infantry is going to be hitting on a 5-up. But because it's the first time they're firing, they're going to be hitting on 4-up, and because they are in close order, they're going to be hitting on 3s or better. However, they're going to have to do 4 hits because they're firing at guys who are beyond a wall. Maybe they wanted to wait another turn, but they're excitable. They're noobs. So every 3 or better, and every 4 of those notches a casualty. So there you go. 2 groups of 4, We're going to remove 2 of our farmers, put them up in the graveyard, and the farmers are going to have to make a morale check. Oh, they don't get the benefit of the leader, at a total of -2. A result of an 8 minus 2 is going to be a 6. They'll be fine for the next turn. Then we have our skirmishers, who are once again going to make a skirmish action. And with a result of a 6, they will be successful. We'll bring them... they're going to open fire. Why wouldn't you? They roll half dice for attacks, but for firing, they roll all 12 dice. Now, they're not great at shooting. They do fire at a 5 or better, but that does manage to score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits, which will do a grand total of, well, they're firing at a cannon that's behind cover, so we're going to remove 2 more of our cannoneers, and the cannon makes a morale check, and with a result of an 8, that's a 6. The cannon is still fine. We're doing really good on the morale checks this time around, and I think that ends the... No, we have our leader can move as well, and I think we're going to go ahead and bring him up to within 1.5 inches. Let's just bring him up a little bit further. Now, we don't want to form close order. If you form close order, it gives the cannon a +1 to shoot at you. We're going to try to stay loosey-goosey, give him a difficult target, but we are going to move up just a little bit more so that we command the objective, and if we get pushed back, hey, we've got at least 1 retreat in us before we start losing points. That's going to be the end of the turn for the revolutionaries. The counter-revolutionaries get to go now, and the question becomes, do we charge the line or do we come out in this direction? We got a unit here that's not doing much good. Let's chase these skirmishers off first. With a result of a 5, this unit is going to hesitate. They're not going to take action. Our cannon still has to fire at the skirmishers, and with an 8, it will. Now, the skirmishers are going to be hit on 4s in this case. They are no longer at long range, and every 3 hits will do a damage. Skirmishers are always treated as being in soft cover. That is going to do, what did we say? It's a 4 up, so that's going to do 2 more casualties to the dragoons. And at a minus, are they within 6 inches? They are not. So 2 minus 2 gets them a result of a 6, and they are still in the fight, except they are down to half of their original number. So they automatically fight as disordered. This disorder marker, and I'll put it right under the leader, cannot go away, even if you rally, because you're at half size. When you're disordered, you fight and shoot at half power, but that's okay, because they bought another turn for these guys. Hey, for the blues, another victory point. Now our leader, come on, guy, you gotta get on it. 7, he finally decides that it might be worthwhile to participate in this little fight, and we're gonna leave them on this side of the ridge for now, because we're a little nervous about those cavalry changing direction and coming after us. So we'll take a look at the other side of the battlefield. Over on this side of the battlefield, the heck with it, let's charge. Let's get stuck in. An 8 is successful. Now, the cavalry are going to try to countercharge. They only need a 5 to do it, and that means we are going to meet right in the middle. There's probably a whole bunch of rules for the order that you do this, but whatever. We're just going to bring them right to the center. Now, why did I do that? The answer is, I got to do something with these guys. They fight at a 4+ because they successfully charge. They're going to hit on 3s. They need to roll 3 successes to remove 1 cavalry guy. Counting up the number of 3s, we get 1 casualty, we get a 2nd casualty, and then we have a 6 and a whole bunch of nothing. So we will remove 2 of our ponies. The ponies now get to attack, and they have a fight skill of, remember, these are heavy cavalry. Their fight skill is only 5, but because they charged, they're going to hit on 4s, and they only need pairs of successes to remove a casualty. So we have 1, 2, and that is a tied combat. The defending unit has to retreat a half a move. That is, the cavalry are going to pull back to about here. Now, normally when you win an attack, you can make a follow-up move, but infantry never get to do that. So that's just the retreat that the cavalry suffers. That's to say nothing of the morale check. So we got to do a morale check at -2, and 8 is fine. We got to do a morale check at evens, -2, +1 for the discipline, +1 for the leader, and a 7. Both sides are fine morale-wise. The last combat we have to do is over here, where our line infantry in close order is being charged by the natives. And the natives are going to charge home. They are going to successfully press the attack. The natives normally fight at a 4-up, but because they are successful on the charge, they're hitting on 3s. And every pair is going to do 1 casualty. We're picking out the pairs. We get 1, 2, 3, 4 all together, so we'll knock over our 4 casualties. And then on the counterattack, now, normally, the line infantry only fight on 6s. But because they're in line, they attack on 5s. Or they hit on 5s. And because it's their first attack of the game, they will hit on 4s just on this first round. They get a total of 1, 2, 3 hits on the Vendéans. I'm going to knock over 1, 2, 3 of those guys. Now, the Vendéans have won this first round. The line infantry will back up 1.5 inches, and the Vendéans can opt to pursue, which, of course, they will, because the line infantry now has been pushed back. I think that we're going to keep them in line, so they still get the +1 to attack. The farmers make contact, and the farmers are still classed as having charged, so they will still be hitting on 3s or better. And this time they're going to get, well, I'm going to pull out the misses instead. They're going to do 5 more casualties. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, leaving the line with just 3. But the line guys do, because they're still at more than half strength. They get to counterattack. It's all simultaneous, still at +1, still hitting on 5s. And they don't do too shabby themselves. They get a total of 1, 2, well, just 2 hits altogether. So they do a total of 5 hits to the farmers, which may be enough, because we have to do our morale checks. The line infantry is at -9. And with an 8 -9, oh, look at that. They just completely break. And they have had just about enough of this. Thank you very much. For their part, the Vendéans are going to be at a total of -5 on their roll. They have no bonuses. They get a 1. They are going to be broken. They get 2 disorder markers. And that's the end of turn number 4. With 1 unit in command, let's go to the scoreboard. Our 1 becomes 2 points to the militia. There is one last item of business to which we must attend. When a unit There is one last item of business to which we must attend. When a unit is removed from the table, as the blue line infantry in the hayfield was, every allied unit within 6 inches, that includes our heavy cavalry, has to take a morale check. Now, the heavy cavalry is at +1 for their discipline, and they didn't take any casualties to force this morale check, so there are no other minuses. They are right close. Here's the leader. He's over here just off screen again. Peekaboo. And they get a +1 for him being nearby, so we are at a total of +2. We roll our dice, and with an 11, they will pass, which makes a good deal of sense, I think. So there you go. So we get a 9. They have 1 secure flank. They are veterans. They're not easily rattled. And I think that makes sense. So that is now the end of turn number 4. Moving where our total score is 2 points to the blue to 0 points for the whites. We are once again going to try to charge home with our cavalry. They need a 6 or better. And with an 8, they get the success. Their charge is 14 inches. Divide that by 2, becomes 7 inches for us. And we finally are able to strike home with our cavalry. The hope here was to clear out everything here on the right flank and then zip around behind the artillery and take it out. Hasn't quite panned out for us this time, but I think we're almost there. The cavalry successfully pressed home their attack. They're going to be fighting at full strength, hitting on 4s, normally 5s, +1 for the charge, and for every pair of hits, we'll remove a defending figure. So that's 1, 2, 3 of our defenders are going to take a dirt nap. Le nap du dirt, but the infantry do get a chance to counterattack, and those infantry are aggressive, remember, so their fight is also at 4. However, because they're fighting cavalry, they need to roll 3 successes to remove a casualty. If we can get 6 successes altogether, there's 1, there's 6. That removes 2 of the cavalry figures, and I'll lay them down so we don't forget. I need that visual reminder sometimes. We next move on to the morale phase of the contest, and our cavalry are going to be at a total of +2, -2, right, +1 for the leader, +1 for discipline, -2 because they took 2 casualties, and anything boxcars is going to be successful. The infantry now are going to be at a total of -3 on their roll, and another boxcars. Yahtzee. Everybody's fine. The defender is forced to retreat a half a move. That would be 2 inches. Oh, wait a second. We're not to the morale check. What a waste of a bunch of boxcars, huh? Because we're not done with this melee. The infantry, having lost 3 figures, are forced to retreat a half a move. So they get pulled back to here, and we fight a second round of combat. If the cavalry want to follow up, and yeah, of course they do. They are, once again, going to be hitting on 4s and removing a figure for every 2 successes versus 3 for the infantry. So our cavalry are going to get a total of 1, 2, 3 more successes. And we'll just pull them off the back as usual. I know that's not quite how it's supposed to be done. The infantry, it's just easier for these swirling melees to do that. So the infantry have lost a total of, let me lay them down, and this is why we lay them down as a visual reminder. Now the infantry fight back, and the infantry are going to be hitting on 4s. They get 1, 2 more kills to the cavalry. So the cavalry have lost a total of 4, and the infantry have completely lost. They are going to be falling back another 2 inches before we do our morale tests. Okay, so let's re-roll those morale tests. The cavalry now are going to be at a total of -2. And with a result of a 3, that's bad for them. They will get a disorder marker. I cleared out the dice and the casualties to make this a little easier to see what's going on. Then we have to check for the guys on foot. And with the result of a 7 minus the 6 casualties, they are at a 1. That means they are broken. They are forced to retreat. And the retreat is going to be a broken. If it's 2 or less, gain 2 disorder tokens and must retreat half a move. Now, they are at half strength, meaning they are removed from the table. Here's a question I got for you. When you're at half strength, do you remove the casualties, put the disorder marker down, and then make the morale check? Or do you make the morale check? And that's important, because if you put the disorder marker down for half strength and then make the morale check, there's an extra -1. Now, it wouldn't have mattered here, because the cavalry still scored their 2 to just be broken instead of disorder. But in future combats, that could make a difference. Let me know what you think. I am going to assume that the broken occurs the moment you are at half strength, so before the morale check. Now that we have a unit blocking the artillery fire, we're going to form close ranks with our leader. I'll do that in a second. He's going to form up, and these guys are going to be prepared to receive the charge from the whites, who are quickly approaching the center of the battlefield. That being the case, we're going to try to get these skirmishers out of here. They are at -1 on this activation check. Are they within 6 inches of the boss man? I like my... no, they are really not. I mean, I guess you could make a case that that puts them... We're just going to give them the -1. They need a 7 to succeed. And they have failed. No, yeah, they need a 7 because of the disorder marker. So they're going to hang out right there. And the last order of business is this line infantry. They are going to succeed in firing on a 6th. They are volley firing. Normally they hit on 5s. Because of the volley fire, they will be hitting on 4s. All of the rest of the modifiers are applied to the armor check. So we count up our number of 4s. 2, 4, 6, 7 successes altogether. Now, how many guys do we take out? Normally it's 2, but our farmers are behind a wall, so that's 3. At long range, that means you need 4 hits to cause a casualty. Our farmers will only lose 1 casualty. Now, they do have to make a morale check. They are too far from the leader to suffer from his success. They're at a total of -1. With a result of a 6, they are fine, and that's the end of the top half of the 5th inning. We'll go ahead and we want to fire with the cannon first, because if we can drive these guys off, then we can drive the skirmishers off, then we can use these farmers to come to grips over here. Because we only have 1 remaining staff member down here, we are only going to roll 6 dice. And the 6 dice, cannons they fire on a 4-up. They are within 6 inches still, so no penalty there. So straight up but these guys do count as being in cover. So we get a total of 3 successes, which is enough to do 1 casualty to the skirmishers. They will make their morale check, and now they really are beyond 6 inches, no question about it. They roll a total of 3, and because they're already broken, because they're already disordered for half strength, they become broken, and they will have to retreat 2 inches to here. Well, we'll bring them back this way, I think. And the reason we're going to kind of drift back this way is that it puts us beyond 6 inches from this unit over here. And I think that's the next unit we want to activate. I think we'd really like to chase these skirmishers off once and for all. So maybe that's the smart play here. Maybe we use these guys to chase off the last of the skirmishers and start bringing this unit out this way. Well, that being the case, let's bring that unit out first. Let's find out what happens there. They are going to move, and we're going to ignore the guys that have formed close order. So we are going to move a total of 3 inches. The wall is in the way. So they're going to come out to about here. And the other reason we're doing this is that we need to start scoring some points. It would be nice to chase your enemy off the battlefield altogether, but if you do that and you don't have enough turns to squat on the objective, you're going to lose on points. Now the last thing we can do we bring these guys out to face the line infantry or chase off the skirmishers? And I think the answer is let's go chase off the skirmishers. It opens up a shot next round by our cannon. Does our leader act? And with a result of a 9, he does. Not only that, but he is going to be able to come to grips. With the result of an 8, they will move 4 inches. Skirmishers can take an evade action. However, because this unit of skirmishers is broken, they're at -2 to that check, +1 for the leader. And altogether, that -1 means they've failed. They're going to have to stand and just take the full brunt of the charge. If our farmers can roll well enough. Now, normally they hit on 4s. They fight at 4. But they are going to succeed on 3s, and they only need 2 successes. They have driven off this unit. And they've opened up a fire lane to the line infantry. However, I think we all know what the line infantry is going to do. They're not just going to take that. Where does that leave us? The skirmishers do get 1 counterattack, and they fight with half the number of dice normally used. Now, because there are only half of them, they fight with half the number of dice. Because they were broken, they fight with half that number of dice. And skirmishers are going to be fighting on 6s, and that means with no successes, there's no casualties. These guys can make a follow-up move, and I think, do we want to do that? Before we do that, our leader unit has to make a morale check. With a result of an 8 altogether, they're going to be fine. Remember, it's +1 for the leader. Natives can use their follow-up move, half a move, 2 inches, to fight another melee with another unit that they can reach. Well, hey, look at that. We are within 2 inches of this line infantry, so the leader will follow up. Now, you only are limited to just the 2 attack rolls per turn. And so if the line infantry is broken, the natives, the Vendeans, will not follow up in this case. But they are still classed as having charge. They will still be hitting on 3s. And we're going to get a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hits altogether. That will remove 1, 2, 3 casualties. Note, the unit started in the front 180 degrees. The attacking unit was in the front 180 degrees of the defending unit. Therefore, this is an attack on the line infantry's front, not their flank. Had it been an attack in the flank, if we had charged in from basically behind them, then the line infantry would have received a disorder marker before this combat. That didn't happen. Our line infantry now, because they are in close order, their fight improves from a 5 to a 4. And once again, for every pair of hits, we will remove a casualty figure. So 1, 2, that was a 6, 3, and 4 hits altogether. So surprisingly enough, the line infantry has won this combat by a score of 3 to 4, forcing the leader's unit back a half a move. And in this case, our line infantry does not want to follow up. Can they or must they? That's a good question. The answer is that if you can follow up, you don't have to. However, line infantry don't have follow-up as an option. So we just go right to our morale checks. Our line infantry are at -2 altogether on their check. And a 4 minus 2 is a result of a 2. A 2 is a broken. They're going to have to retreat half a move. But before we move these figures around, I'm going to roll for the Vendéans, who are at a total of -3. 4 for the casualties, +1 for the leader. They score a total of 5. 8 minus 3 is 5. And because it's above 2, they need a 6 to pass the test. They got a 5, so they failed. They get a disorder marker. And that's it for them. So grab one more disorder markers, and there we go. Now we can clean up this mess. And I'm just going to remove the casualties for now, because we still need to figure out what this unit over here is doing. The farmers over there on the far right flank are they are going to try to recover. They have 2, they're broken at the moment. With a result of a 7, -5, -2, because they're broken, they are going to fail that morale test. And a failed morale test means they receive an additional, but they already have 2, so they rout and they are removed from the game. Took a little longer than expected. Where does that leave us as far as points go? Our Vendéans still have a total of 16 points on the board out of the 26. We don't need to make any morale checks for that. What about for the Blues? They have a total of, well, they've only lost 8 points so far. They've got their heavy cavalry and 2 line. They're at 17. So it's 17 points to 16 points. We're still alive. Our blue still control the objective. There's nothing in the scenario that says the unit cannot be broken. They score 1 more point with our little spin-up die, and we go on to turn number 6. Score of 3 to 6. Kind of curious, isn't it? Now let's come back down to the battlefield, and we're going to start over here on the right. First thing we need to do is try to recover. Let's save this for last. If our leader routs here, if we fail this check, things could go really poorly. Before we make that check, let's try to bring our cavalry into play. They're going to move. No, they're not. They're just going to hang out. I'm glad we tried to move them and not rally, because if we rally, they probably would have rallied right off the table. Over on the left, the Blues are still in close order. They still have a target that is now within 6 inches. They do need to worry about the wall here. So they're going to be at a total of, well, they're still in volleys, so they're still shooting on 4s. Well, first of all, do they activate? With a result of a 5, they do not. And then the last thing that's going to happen is the leader is going to try to rally with a result of an 8, -2, because he's got both of these markers, +1 for the leader, +1 for discipline. They do successfully rally. So not a lot of movement, but at least they're getting their forces together. The next thing we want to do for the whites now, we have the 2 native contingents, if you will, and we really need to take that. But before we do, Let's try to take a shot with our cannon. The cannon is within 6 inches of the leader. A leader that's broken doesn't get the +1. Would that have made a difference over here? I can't remember. So he's only going to activate on 5 up, and we do get the successful activation. So broken, not disordered. A disordered leader is still capable of giving commands. We still get the +1. Our cannon, though, is shooting at half strength, and we are looking for 4s on that one. We only get 2 4s, so that's going to take out 1 casualty, and we'll pull this guy off right here. That will also force a morale check, and this is an even check. With the result of a 6, the unit is fine, but man, we're whittling them down. Now we have to decide, do we want to bring the disordered unit over? It's not looking good for the Vendéans here, is it? If we charge home, they're only going to be fighting with half dice. Or do we rally, and then we're going to have to take another shot from these guys? I think, let's go ahead and charge home. We really got to drive them off. With a 6, we will be successful. We will move a total of 3 inches, which will bring us not quite there. Oh boy. All right, so there's our charge, and then we have 1 more unit that can act, and the question is, do we bring the leftmost natives over to attack these guys? Do we bring them around the wall? Can we even do that, or do you have to follow the shortest route? They can see them. They're going to run around the wall. It's a little far. I think we're going to need to roll high in order to make it, and that is definitely not going to do it. So they stand around like a bunch of dopes, and that's going to be the end of the turn. So we move on to turn number 7. By the way, the game lasts a total of anywhere from 8 to 14 turns, and now because, well, we're still 2 inches away, so that is going to be 4 victory points to the Blues. And now the Blues have the option of, well, let's start off by opening fire on this approaching unit. A result of an 8 will be successful. The Blues have everybody. They'll roll 12 dice. They are going to be hitting on 5s. 1, 2, 3. They only score 3 successes. That's only going to remove 1 casualty. For an even check, and with a 7, the Vendéans are fine. Then we have a volley fire over here, and that volley fire with a 7 will be successful. They are still dealing with the increased armor. The Vendéans are within 6 inches. We will be hitting on 4s. 1. Well, okay, now let's figure out how many hits we need. We are within 6 inches, but we get the hard cover, so that's going to be 1 casualty and 2 casualties. Pretty good roll. 8 hits only does 2 casualties. We'll take them off the front to make them run as far as possible. We need to make a morale check, and we are beyond 6 inches because we pulled them off the front. We're being really mean to our farmers today, but with an 11, Honey Badger don't care. We have 1 more unit. It's not on the screen just yet. I'm going to roll to activate them. This is our cavalry who are going to ride to the rescue. They can move a total of 5 inches to here. And this also presents the artillery with 1 more target to aim at. They are disordered, so they're not terribly effective, but they do present a threat that the whites will have to deal with. We're going to charge home again, and this time they succeed. They're going to impact. The line infantry cannot counterattack. Because they are disordered, our leader is going to be rolling 6 dice. However, they will be doing casualties for every 3 success, for every 3s they roll. And pretty terrible roll. Not going to lie to you. So that's 1 casualty for the Blues. The Blues now get to roll all 12 dice. They fight. They're not good at fighting. They fight on 6s, actually. They get a total of 1 success. Because it's a tie, 1-1, the defender is forced to retreat 1.5 inches, and that will push him off the objective. The Vendéans finally score their first victory, and I guess they have to retreat the half a move, so they're going to have to pull back 2 inches, and we're going to pull them back away from the melee a little bit like this because we still want to leave our cannon open, but they are broken, so they are not going to score their first victory point yet, are they? We'll bring this unit. Boy, do we chase these guys off? I think you gotta. So we're going to charge home over here. And this time with a result of an 11, they're going to be able to move a total of 5.5 inches. That will put them in contact with the line infantry. However, because they started in the front arc, we're not going to give them the benefit of charging home in the flank. They charged, so they will be hitting on 3s. Not that it's done them much good. I'll reroll this one because it's cocked. And for every 2 successes, they will remove a casualty. So the Blues lose 4 guys, and then the Blues counterattack. They're at +1. They're going to be hitting on 4s, and for every pair, we'll remove a casualty. There's 1, 2, 3 casualties. The Blues have lost this fight, and with a total of 7 casualties, they are going to retreat off the board, and our Vendéans will opt not to follow up. The Blues have been reduced to 12 army points. That's less than half their starting point. They have to make some morale checks. Starting with the leader, we're at a +1. We're fine. The horses, we're at -1 for being disordered, +1 for having a leader nearby. Both of them are fine. I forgot about that. The last thing we're going to do is our artillery is going to fire at the horses if we successfully activate, which we do. At half strength, hitting on 4s. 1, 2, 3, removes a figure. Morale check at -1. +1, a 7. The cavalry are okay. At the end of turn number 7, no one is close enough to the objective to score any points. That leaves the score at 4 points to the blue, to no points for the red. Turn number 8, we're going to roll a d6. On a 6, the game is over after this turn. But we'll do that at the end of the turn. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to try to bring the Blues are just going to block out. They just want to force another combat. With a result of a 6, -1 for the token, +1 for the leader, they will be able to move up to within an inch, and that is simply going to force a combat out of this badly battered native contingent. Then our cavalry are going to try to charge home. There's just 2 of them. They're going to roll to activate, and with a result of a 10, 16, do we want to pull these guys back? Yeah, let's do that. We're going to try to evade, and we're going to fail. So we will run our combat, and it's going to be kind of light because we're at 6 dice for the cavalry. They're only going to do 1 wound. When you are broken, I know when you're broken, you reduce the number of hits required to remove a figure by 1. That's not the case here. And all action tests are at a -2 for these guys. They will get to counterattack, and they don't get the benefit of the charge, so they're only going to be hitting on 4s. Rolling half dice means... Now, is this cumulative? Yeah, I think the idea here is that you gain a permanently disordered token when you are at half strength. What does that mean? Well, it means that we don't roll 3 dice when you have a broken unit at half strength. If you're at half strength, you get 1, and then maybe you get another one. Anyway, the point being, we rolled a total of 3 successes. That will be enough to remove 1 cavalry figure. So both sides have to make a morale check. The boys on foot are going to be at a total of -2. They got 1 casualty, but they have a leader. The 2 disordered tokens mean, they're fine. They actually pass. And then our cavalry have to check, and he is going to be at a total of evens. With the result of a 2, he's going to gain another token. No, if you don't get 2, he's actually out of the game. That means that our Blues are at less than 75% of the strength. All of their forces will rout from the table. With the Vendéans in sole possession of the battlefield, let's find out who wins. We probably should have checked these objectives earlier, huh? You get 3 honor if your company controlled the objective marker for the most turns. All right, well, that's 3 points to the Blues. 1 honor if you caused 33% casualties to the enemy. Hey, both teams did that. And 2 if you took less than a third casualties. Well, that doesn't apply to anybody. So the final score for victory points is 4 to the blue to 1 for the Vendéans. Although the Vendéans control the battlefield at the end of the day, they suffered enormous casualties. This is kind of a historical result, by the way. The Vendéans typically won battle after battle after battle, but because they were so small compared to the rest of France, because they got no support from Britain or the other regions of France at the time, they basically lost a war of attrition. I probably should have checked those objective markers early on, and I probably should have adopted a different strategy. The Blues went with a wide open front. We probably should have hung out on this side of the battlefield. That second ridge line really limited the reach of our cannon. We weren't able to protect our cannon to be able to decimate the enemy at distance. Two of our guys were unsupported. Two of our units were unsupported over there on the right. Probably a tactical mistake on my part. But we can analyze the game a little bit. I think we'll do a proper review, but it's a good game. It works really well for what it is. It's more complicated, which may be appropriate for a horse and musket era compared to like lion rampant. A lot of if-thens, a lot of kind of wonky situational modifiers that are buried in paragraphs in the rules. I'm going to take a look around, see if I can find a better quick reference sheet. That might help me remember a lot of these if-then statements that are so rife in this intellectual hobby of ours. Thanks for coming along for the ride. I'm going to go pet my birds. Till next time, I'm praying for you.